if I'm a team out there at an elite level, I'm not chasing Kai Havertz. If he happens to fall on my lap, if he happens to fall because of the price and it becomes a rollback price and it becomes a clearance price, if you will, because that's what Chelsea's trying to do, then I'll entertain it. But I'm not going to go chase Kai Havertz because I don't think that the productivity warrants me getting worked up about Kai Havertz. Again, we're talking about the very elite teams here. We're talking about the very best. Mid-table team, you can go chase him if you want to. But at elite level, he hasn't played at an elite level with Chelsea and certainly hasn't done so over the last couple of years.
You know, the weird thing about, the only thing that's in Kai Havertz's favour here is Timo Werner, oddly, because of his struggles at Chelsea. And then he goes back to Germany and finds form. So, but again,
Form-ish.
But again, if you're a purchasing club and you're willing to spend up north of 70 million, okay, both Arsenal and Real Madrid are saying that the suggestions is it won't go that high, but still we're talking 70 million. That's a really weird kind of stance to take. That, well, Timo Werner rediscovered his form once he left Stamford Bridge, so therefore we think the same with Kai Havertz. Nothing about this makes sense for me. Maybe from a Real Madrid as a stopgap, given earlier in the summer, or a few weeks ago, you weren't quite sure what's happening with Kylian Mbappe. All you knew was Karim Benzema was moving on, so there was a gap to fill. But from Arsenal, again, the more I think about it, and the more I look back to good Kai Havertz in the Bundesliga, is he likes to play as a kind of false nine, a lot of times drifting out to the right-hand side. But Arsenal have Odegaard, Arsenal have Saka, who both do the same things. Kai Havertz doesn't get in ahead of them. So 70 million and you're struggling to find a place for him to play. Credit to Arteta, he's seen something I clearly am not.
Do Chelsea need to sell him, Jules? And are they going to get 70 million for this player?
Chelsea have to sell, whether that's Havertz, Kovacic, I don't know, you name them, anybody, they have to sell. They have to sell quickly before the end of the month to balance their books after all the money that they spent in the last two transfer windows. And if you look at it right now, there are not many players who they're willing to let go who are valuable on the transfer market. And I think to a certain extent, Havertz, especially because of his age, and I think especially because, like us, a lot of people see the talent, even if he hasn't really been at his best in all those years at Chelsea. But I think that's why I think they pushing him towards a sell, and they're welcoming the offers for him. 70 million, there's no way. I don't think there's any way that anybody would pay that much money for him. However, and to go back to what the boys were saying, maybe what Arsenal are hoping is that at some point, because Chelsea are under pressure to sell, and everybody in the whole world knows it, then maybe you can get a really good deal with a Kai Havertz or a Kovacic or whoever it is that they will have to sell very quickly, that maybe you know that you are in a strong position if you're an Arsenal or a Real Madrid for Kai Havertz, because Chelsea want to sell him, they have to sell him, they have to get money in quickly, and in that case, maybe that makes you stronger in the negotiation, and maybe you can get a really good bargain deal or price for him, because I do think that the talent is there, we can see it. If you get a good transfer fee for him, not too expensive, but you know, something like really interesting, then I think maybe then it becomes a good deal.
Meanwhile, Jules, Arsenal are said to be the front runners to sign Declan Rice, despite the fact there's interest from the likes of Manchester United and Bayern. But what's the number that gets this done for them?
It's an interesting one. I think he's got 2 years left on his contract, so you're not in a strong position as if he only had 1 year left, of course. They see him as world class, and I think me and Don agree. A lot of people in England think that 100 million for Declan Rice is too expensive. It's what Real Madrid paid for Bellingham, who is, I give him to that, he's 4 years younger. But for me, Rice and Bellingham are two world-class, amazing talents that are worth the 100 million. So you pay premium because he's English, because you sign him from another English club, and I think Arsenal are aware of all of that. Where I'm a bit more surprised, and maybe it's because of the price, is that right now they're the front runners, mostly because nobody else really is there. I think Bayern Munich are looking at it, but from a distance. United certainly haven't moved in yet. So Arsenal are in the front seat because they seem to be the only one to see the value of Declan Rice even at that price.
Is that fair, Don? 100 million plus West Ham asking for Declan Rice?
Absolutely, it's fair if you're West Ham. I think if you're Arsenal, you can try and get cute in the deal. I mean, I was reading today that Emile Smith-Rowe, Arsenal are reportedly keen on keeping on, but if you're West Ham, you can try and ask for, you know, close to, I don't know, 70, 75 million and take Smith-Rowe in sort of part exchange and try and be a little bit creative that way, I think, if you're Arsenal. But I think if you're West Ham and you're seeing Enzo Fernandez go for 115, and as Jules said, Bellingham's what, 113, 115, in around that sort of number, then you're well within your rights. I think if you're West Ham with 2 years left on your contract, when they've just won a trophy as well, you know, the way he's played this season and played over the years and the potential that he's got to stay at Arsenal for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, I think you're very, very close to 100 million. So that's why, going back to the Kai Havertz one, I mean, Arsenal must have some money this summer if they're chasing Casado for 75 million, Declan Rice for 100, and then whatever it is for Kai Havertz, 30, 40, 50. I can't believe it's 70. But on Declan Rice, he's definitely 100 in my opinion.
Let's do a little fantasy football and say that they do get Kai Havertz and they do get Declan Rice. They were very close to Man City this year in terms of the title race. Does that change it? Can they challenge again?
I think they can challenge again, whether they can get the better of Manchester City. Right now, if I'm putting a bet on who wins the next Premier League title, I go City again. They've just shown that they can do it. That's the question for Arsenal is how do you close that gap? How do you make your squad big enough in competing in the Champions League and able to sustain that challenge down during the run-in? Not just deep enough, but with enough experience, with enough players who will keep their heads, who won't fault as maybe Arsenal did. That, for me, is the big challenge for Arteta in strengthening the squad.
Your thoughts on that?
I'm with Shaq. I don't think we can look past Manchester City in any conversation when it comes to the Premier League as to who we think is going to win next season. And the issue with Arsenal is not so much as to what they do themselves, which I'm sure they'll make the right decisions and they'll go after the right players and they'll get the players that they think are going to make them stronger and deeper. But guess what? Everybody else is doing that too. Manchester United is not just sitting back and saying, hey, you guys have all the fun. No, they're going to get better. You imagine that Liverpool is going to get better. At some point, we think that Chelsea is going to get better. So all these clubs are not just sitting back and saying, Arsenal, you be the only one who challenges those guys. And so the problem with Arsenal is it's not just going to be making decisions for their own club. It's also what happens around them in other clubs getting themselves stronger as well.
So just talking about Casado as well here, Jules, obviously Don wants to know what's going on there. They were close to getting him before. Would they still be keen on getting Moises Casado in, considering that they are linked with these players?
Very much so, yeah. I think there will be another midfielder, whether they do Rice and someone else or two others if they can't do Rice, for example. But with Shaka, probably I think likely to leave the club, then I think you need two. One to replace Shaka and one that comes in and is an upgrade maybe on what you have in Jorginho and Thomas Partey, or certainly that gives you more options to pick your midfield three if you keep playing in the 4-3-3 formation. So whether it's Caicedo Rice, whether it's Rice and someone else, I think they would be in for that. Do they have enough money to do all of that? We will have to see. But I think they will be backed up on the transfer market by the ownership. And then it's how to spend your money and how much you have and do it wisely. But I think if you can do Rice and Caicedo in your Arsenal, it's looking very good for you.
Don, you said recently that you don't see Arsenal finishing in the top 4 next season. Declan Rice comes in and Kai Havertz. Does that change your mind? Yeah,
because you're bringing in really good players. My standpoint when I said I'm not sure if they get top 4, like Ali said before, you know, it's the starting point where Arsenal are. It's like, you know, they've got to try and catch other teams up. Man City will go again. They look like they're going to sign Kovacic. If Gundogan moves on, they'll probably move for another quality midfield player. Joshua Kimmich has been linked. So as it stands, I think they've got it all on because there's so many teams challenging. Don't rule out Newcastle challenging for top 4 again next season and potentially a trophy. So unless they sign Declan Rice, and as I said, Casado and Kai Havertz, then you might think they can push Man City. But how do you try and see past Man City when they just won the treble?
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.